I am beyond excited for this episode because, as you can see in front of me, buddy, I've got a wheat beer
glass
ready to go. Yes, and there is the most epic wheat beer that I've been waiting to try forever, that I've been holding on for this epic episode number 3 of the Beer Explorers.
They say your memories are the best kind of memories.
For anybody who's never seen one of these episodes before, it's where we partake in the art of beer exploration. We search for the most epic beers we could possibly find, to discover brave new beer worlds and to taste delicious new beers that we haven't tried before. And we present them to each other. They're a secret. We don't know what beers that we're having. We each open and close our beer brackets. We have 2. There's no time to waste. I will let you get started today. What are you opening your beer brackets with?
I'm so excited for this one, my friend, because I found this actually quite a bit ago, and I was excited because it was a style that I had heard of, had read of, and I had actually tried on an episode on beer brackets before.
Really?
Yes, but not in the original traditional form. And that beer is Tucher, their Rotbier. The Rotbier style.
Oh, nice red beer.
Yes, the Rotbier style is a specific style. The traditional one, the original one, is attributed to the town of Nuremberg in Germany. Might remember, when I tried the Schlenkerla and I said that they actually used the Rotbier as a base. That's what I was referring to. That was the first time when I actually had heard about that. Sure enough, a little bit later, I found this beer that is supposedly the original, close to original. I'll tell you why in a moment. But first, I want you to have an opportunity to introduce your beer, my friend.
Buddy, I am opening my beer brackets with, I can't even overstate the epicness of this beer. And the thing is, this isn't 100% surprise because I have this beer already, and I know that you can't find it, so we couldn't do a full review of it like we would have loved to. But it is the Dunkel version of a beer that sits on the perfect beer round table, and it is the Paulaner Weissbier Dunkel. This has been sitting in my beer cellar for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. Talk about beer exploration. The journey that I went on to procure these beers. I was on a wait list on the LCBO website. I moved to Quebec from Ontario, stayed on the LCBO website in Ontario on the wait list, and I waitlisted a bunch of beers that were out of stock for years that they hadn't held but were still listed there. And I got random pings all of a sudden that different stores around Ontario had these beers, and I had them all shipped to one location that was as close as possible to Montreal along the Ontario border. And I went to go pick them all up, and this was one of them, and I couldn't believe it. This was a beer that I saw on the Paulaner website, especially after we gave the regular Weissbier a perfect beer rating. I was like, oh my God, there's a Dunkel version?
I was quite surprised when you told me about it, and I looked, and so far I haven't been able to find it, but I am glad that you did, my friend, and I'm excited to hear about this.
Buddy, let's pour these beers out. Let's open our beer brackets.
I believe it's time.
Oh, what a special occasion this is. Oh, wow.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Like most Paulaner beers, such a thick head on this one. Okay, I'm going to let it settle a little bit before...
Oh, look at that, man.
This up again. Okay, so we recently did a review of the Weihenstephaner Hefeweißbier Dunkel, and it's got a similar coloration, but this one's actually a little bit more caramel, however you put it,
caramel,
than the Weihenstephaner one. A little bit lighter brown, but oh my God, dude, the aroma. On the cheers, buddy.
Cheers, my friend. Cheers to you.
Let's go in for a sip. I can't wait to hear about that rot beer.
I see some beer epiphany happening there, my friend.
There's a beer moment. That is good. That is this blows any other wheat beer Dunkel that I've ever had in my life out of the water.
Wow.
This is its own animal. This is its own beast. Friend, I need to process this for a few minutes. So please tell me about that rot beer.
Gladly, my friend. Let's start from first impressions. Like one thing that you might have seen now that I presented the beer. The beer is slightly cloudy, and it is on purpose. It says here on the can, Naturstrubus, which is like naturally cloudy. But let's talk about the taste and the flavor. You saw they had a significant head, and it's very intense, both on the aroma and on the taste. What's very interesting is that I don't think I've had a lager that tastes like this before, because we are familiar with red ales, Irish red ales in particular, and there are some similarities there, but I'd say it's actually quite different. There's almost like a slight smokiness to it. It's very, very light. I'm just talking about a reminiscent scent of that. But then you have this like very rich caramel, but tending to almost like slightly burnt sugar. Very, very complex, very refreshing, and very light on the palate. So it's extremely, extremely drinkable. I am really enjoying this. And then I'll leave the fact, the little legend, to the end. After you tell me, my friend, about
Wait, there's
yours.
A legend? You're withholding
there is
legends?
a legend. Yes, I am, my friend. There's
You can't
quite
withhold
juicy,
beer legends?
quite juicy legends about this beer.
Why are you withholding beer legends?
because I had to give time to the processing, the natural processing of the beer to speak itself.
Fair. Okay, I accept that reasoning.
Thank you.
I would need to write an essay to describe this beer. I don't even know where to start. Like, dude, just visually, I mean, come on. Like, this head on this beer, let me show you off on the side here. I mean, it's very, very, very thick and very fluffy.
It does look
very,
almost
very
creamy.
thick and fluffy. It's got like a nice 2-finger head on it there.
Nice.
Very active head. Like you can see, it's not soapy. It's really thick. So visually, it's one thing altogether. But then you take a smell of this beer. Do you remember the actual like the regular wheat beer?
Yeah.
So do you remember how just
very well
bready and toasty and almost like savory it was on the aroma? You get all that as a base, but then on top of it, there's like almost a very faint sort of like cinnamon sweetness.
Ooh,
yeah, like a darker like toasted bread crust mixed with a little bit of sweetness. I'm going to venture as far to say like this smells and tastes a little bit like French toast. A little bit. I think that's the perfect description. This is a French toast beer.
That's interesting, man. That sounds
my God.
delicious.
Like, but it's not overpowering. Like when you say sweet with a beer, you imagine like, oh, is it really, really sweet? It's all subtle. And then on the finish, buddy, it's just like yeasty and bready and a little bit of that sweet character. Again, like a little bit of like a cinnamon or a nutmeg, but it's just smooth and it's gone within a couple of seconds, but it's so savory and delicious. It just, like I'm salivating to go in for another sip. This is beer mastery. I didn't think they could improve on the Weissbier. I mean, that's perfect beer in our books, but I hope one day we can both get our hands on this together in the same place and try this, because I'd be very, very curious to hear your reaction to it. But you teased me. You teased me with a beer legend, which is not cool. So now I need to hear this beer legend.
Oh, my friend, I will be delighted to tell you this beer legend. And I did tease you, but I did have a little hint there in the introduction when I said not quite original. Rotbier. It started apparently all the way back in the Middle Ages, so it's been around like for quite a while, and it's original to this town in around Nuremberg. There's a lot of legends about how it came into play, but what we know is that it's a lager style beer, and it's normally traditionally made only with barley malt. So no wheat malt. Now, there is an association of brewers that kind of like safe keeps this style for traditions. And there's different traditional historical German breweries in that association. And apparently, if I'm not mistaken, in 2021, the Tucher brewery here was kicked out.
What?
was banned out of that. Yeah, for no, specifically to call this beer Rotbier traditional original style.
What did
so
they
they
do to
were.
get booted?
I don't know, my friend. That's what the legend like opens up to the mystery. Up until then, apparently they were brewing this beer and it was fine, but then That's all we know. Like they were not allowed to use that terminology anymore as of 2021. So we were already.
It's a modern day
back
beer
then,
battle.
you know?
That's
Like,
what that
it would be
is.
interesting.
That's just such a shame. Okay, but they're still brewing, and they're under their same recipe, and they're still making these delicious road beers.
They are. It's just like not considered a traditional, an original root beer style probably for the way that they produce it. And I don't know. I'm not. I tried to find some more information, but I wasn't able. Maybe somebody knows. If you do, please let us know down below. I just thought it was a very interesting fact and legend to bring up to light here in this episode
Thank you
of the
so
Beer
much.
Explorers.
Thank you so much for bringing that legend to light, my friend. But the beer itself, I mean, like, come on, I need some more details here. Tell me about this. How does this compare? Okay, obviously the Schlenkerla Rotbier that you had in the last Beer Explorers episode is kind of next level. It's different. It's on its own. Yeah. It's in its own category, I would say. But how does this rank against other Rotbiers you've had, or have you even had another?
The only other one I have to compare with is the Schlenkerla, because I had never had like specifically the German Rotbier style. I never had other red beers. Some talk online the fact that they could be compared to other red beers, which are some that we are familiar with, like from the West Flanders. Like, so for example, the Rodenbach, they produce like red ales. Like then there's Irish red ales, but all of these are, I know, different. Like this is a little bit of unique because it's a lager. It uses barley, so it's a slightly different coloration of or malting of the barley to produce this color. But it is quite unique, very light. Carbonation is very lively. What I like about it is that it's still delivering so much flavor. It almost has like a reminiscence, like to give you some element. It could go in the direction of a Bock.
Okay.
Without
that helps me place it for sure.
Yeah, without being that heavy, because 5.2. So it's not at all that heavy.
So there's almost like a little bit of
drinkable
sweetness to it almost?
You would think so, and there is a bit, but it's actually more, for me, on the slightly dry side of it.
Oh,
okay. So you have that dry, almost like burnt
a little
character.
Bit of a Swedish, not from Sweden, but Swedish, Swedish character to it a little bit, just from the higher levels of maltiness, but.
You would, and you're absolutely right. And there's definitely a slightly more than a regular lager in all sense. But if you compare it to, for example, an Irish red ale, there's another red style that we might be familiar with or somebody might have tried out there. It's not as malt forward, I would say.
Okay.
The lusciousness of the malt is way more present on a red ale than it is on this. A little bit more like a good Munich Helles would do, right?
Nice.
Like you can taste the malt, it's there, but it's very refreshing. But the characteristic of like caramel, slight sugar note, like but burnt sugar, so it like almost has this almost dry note to it. That tends into almost like slightly smoky, burnt. It's very, very, very unique and very interesting. It's extremely drinkable.
That sounds absolutely delicious, man. I can't even believe that. This is, I could talk for half an hour about this beer, but it's just an ever evolving, incredibly delicious pint of beer. Anybody out there watching this, if you can find this beer on your beer shelves, seek it out, obtain it, acquire it, however you must, and try it. This is a beer prize if you can get your hands on this one. I must say, this is absolutely fantastic, top notch. Wow, just wow.
You made me salivate just listening to your description, my friend. So I'm really hoping that we'll be able to review that one day, knowing how much we both like the regular Weissbier.
I hope so too, buddy.
Amazing.
I hope so too. We could drink these beers forever. Don't worry, these beers will be drank. I think we need to put these aside right now, and I think we need to close our beer brackets, my friend. So what is the second beer that you've brought today in this beer treasure chest of yours that you'll be opening here?
The closing.
Do you like this
brackets.
glass?
I didn't even notice. That's awesome.
Look at this. It's a beer flute.
All about the special glasses today. Yeah,
right.
I see.
Yeah, I'm all about the special glasses today, but I came prepared with glassware for this very special occasion.
That's awesome. And what are you going to drink out of that? That's what my question is.
Okay, I'm dying to know. What are you closing with?
This beer is a beer that I... Thanks.
That's closing beers, especially. You always close with a bang. I love it.
You see, this I'm particularly excited about because it's one that I had read about and I hadn't been able to procure until recently, and I found it. I was actually quite excited because I've never tried it before, like I said. And this beer is and I'm gonna butcher this, the original Ritterguts Gose. So the original Gose German beer from the town of Dulnitz. I'm going to mispronounce this completely, so I apologize for that. Near Leipzig in Germany.
Okay.
And this style is originated from that area, an incredible historical brewery that has quite a few legends that we could unpack. We could sit here for a long time. So I really had to pick
Oh my God.
a couple to mention.
You
so
came
I'm gonna,
equipped with the
I'm
beer
gonna,
legends today. I'm impressed, man. That is amazing.
I came like very, very strong with the beer legends here. And like this beer itself is a legend. So it started being brewed in 1824. The style is older than that, but this is one of the first and original ones that actually started using and producing this style.
That's amazing. Wow. I can't wait to hear all about that. That's insane. Mine is a little less exciting than yours. Not a little less exciting. It's a little less historical than yours. Here in this neighborhood, NDG in Montreal, that I moved to, there is a store a couple blocks down called Saint Bière, in French, Saint Bière. And it's a little bottle shop, the only one in the area. These little bottle shops are very, very common in Montreal. I haven't seen anything like it. Well, Ontario, where I just moved from, is a little bit different because the alcohol is government controlled. So you can't really open a little shop and sell alcohol. It has to be through these government dispensaries or a big grocery store that has a license to sell beer or wine, let's say. So it's a little bit different. So here we have the corner stores, the dépanneurs that I've talked about before, where you can sell beer. Yes. But then these little bottle shops have opened up that sell just specifically craft beers. And those have popped up all around the city for a little while now. It's been maybe about 10 years where they've been opening up gradually. And so one opened up in this neighborhood, and it's called Saint Bière. And my wife Nat went there and got me beer socks for Christmas that I just loved. And so she's like, you got to go check it out. It's the tiniest little place. I don't even know how many square foot. I would say maybe maximum 100, maybe less 100 square feet, maybe 80 square feet. I don't know. Like you walk in and it's really, you have room to sort of like turn around and there's shelves around you and that's pretty much it. That's what it is. And there's just local Quebec craft beers on there. So they have a beer that is their house pilsner. That is the Saint Bière La Boite Aux Tresors, which basically means the treasure box Pilsner, my friend, and it is brewed by a local brewery here called Microbrasserie La Brosse, which is in the West Island of Montreal. And I find it's like a little run, like community run brewery. I looked into them a little bit. It seems really interesting. Not too much information online about them, but they have pretty good reviews. So maybe something to definitely check out. It's their house beer. So you know what? You know how much I love Pilsners. So I'm really hoping that if this little beer shop down the road from my house, really amazing house Pilsner, this would just be the best beer discovery. So I'm very curious to see how this is.
Let's open them up, my friend.
Let's open them up and find out. Okay. Very, very nice aroma out of the can. Hoppy and bready. It's almost unfair to have a Pilsner follow up that wheat beer Dunkel I just had, but... Oh, yes. Oh, it's like cloudy. Look at that. This is like beer porn. This is picturesque. Look at this. All right, buddy. Cheers. Let's take our first sips.
Cheers, my friend.
What do you think? I can see you smiling over there, but there's silence.
Oh yeah.
There's just beer silence.
That's when you know the beer is good. It just
all right. Tell me.
It takes all your attention. Oh man, like where to start? Well, one thing that is important to know about the style is that one of the elements that is used in the brewing process is salt.
Really?
This attributes obviously, including other elements, and the other one is obviously certain strains like to impart sourness to the mash. Like so, this obviously adds, a certain acidity compared to regular beers, the other beers from that area. As you can see, there's not too much carbonation to it. Let me rephrase that. There's not too much head to it, but the carbonation is actually quite lively. It's very refreshing. Malt and hops are there, but it's interesting how they almost go in the background.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you take a sip, you have this bright acidity, not the acidity that we had like in the Duchess that had like more of a balsamic vinegar characteristic.
Yeah.
And this one here is really just more a straight pungency that almost you get like the same type of acidity you would get when you get like a very bright white wine, like a Sauvignon Blanc that has very high acidity.
Right, yeah.
That makes your tongue salivate. And then you have this saltiness that comes through, but it's not like salty in an unpleasant way. It's almost just like savory. There's this minerality to the beer that is incredible. Like something like you say, like, I've never had anything like this before. I've had some Gose before, but not quite like this. This is a completely different level. Very interesting experience. It's a sensory experience. I wish you could try it.
Wow. My God, I would love to try that. This is really interesting. You know, I wanted to feature this one because I do, like I said, I do really, really love Pilsners. You know, there's the run of the mill sort of like macro brewery Pilsners that you can get that everybody knows, right? They are what they are. And I find with craft Pilsners, there are some that I've tried in my life, like in our Top Desert Island Beers episode, I talked about the Bazooka Bros Pilsner that I had from Westkill Brewery in New York State that just completely blew me away. And I've been having a little bit of trouble finding something to that level of that particular Pilsner. And I want to find something. I want to find a really good craft Pilsner that just hits all those notes, something that's hoppy, something that's bready and yeasty and just satisfying and flavorful, has some body to it, encapsulates all those things, and it's just the perfect, refreshing, tasty Pilsner. This isn't it, unfortunately. You know, but that's what beer exploration is about, man. You got to try things. You got to experiment. It's really nice. Like, this is something that you could chill. You could drink really, really easily on a hot summer day. Drink a couple of them. On the aroma, there's a really like citrus and hop. It's much more citrusy than I would expect from a Pilsner. And on the taste as well, you get like a lot of grapefruit from the particular hops that they're using.
Very nice.
Yeah, very sort of like orange rind, orange peel, grapefruit, very citrusy. And you could see, like, look how cloudy it is.
Yeah, wow. That's
It's
very
extreme.
cloudy.
It's very, very cloudy, which for a Pilsner is very, very unique. And so it wasn't what I was expecting so much. I'm actually just checking the expiry date. Just make sure, you know how sometimes you buy beer and like there's some off flavors there, or just a character you wouldn't really expect, and then you look at the expiry. I don't know if this ever happened to you. Then you look at the expiry date and it's like, oh, it expired 6 months ago, so that's probably why. But this is 2025, so it's fine. Just wanted to make sure this is how it's meant to be.
You're in safe there.
Especially with like cloudiness, I find if a beer's expired, that's one of the main characteristics that I've noticed happens. Not my first choice when it comes to Pilsners, but tasty nonetheless.
Unexpected beer.
Very
experience.
unexpected.
So it's probably a Pilsner that it doesn't taste too much like the Pilsner that you're used to think about. So that's a
different type. Like
of
if I got
experience.
a pint of this, again, sitting out on a patio on a hot summer day and somebody served me a pint of this, I'd be very happy with it. It's a very tasty beer. It's very easy to drink. Slightly malty, but it's mostly hops. Like it's very, very, very hoppy, but a citrusy kind of hop. It's almost like bordering on kind of like a pale ale.
Fruity, yeah.
So just not what I expected,
Wow.
but tasty. If you are in Montreal and if you do like very sort of citrusy hops, this is definitely the way to go. Oh, yeah. And look at that. Just read the can. Cascade hops. The only ingredients, malt, Cascade hops, water, and yeast. So that explains it. Okay, so are there multiple legends you have to say about this beer? Or like, are you going to choose one? What's going on here? You're withholding so many beer legends.
There's
from me
multiple
today,
ones. Well, the problem is that I had so many to choose from, so I had to select carefully. Some of those pertain like the style, and some of them pertain like this specific beer. So what I think would make more sense is like to have maybe in the future an episode that focuses on Gose in particular. We can expand on all the
makes sense to talk about the
little
specific
differences and the legends behind. Exactly. So when it comes to the specific beer, one of the interesting facts to know is that a prince, my friend, was recommending specific beer, the Beer Prince. Yes, he was recommending this specific beer because he tried it back in the days, and he thought it was so particularly delicious. But one thing that I wanna pinpoint is that here in the picture, and I'll show you in a second. I'm just gonna show here to the camera, which I thought was very interesting because this is that bottle there is the traditional bottle that is used to serve and contain those beers. And the interesting fact is that those bottles traditionally were not sealed. So they would develop, the yeast would naturally develop like on top and create almost like a natural cork, a barrier there. I don't know if it's still done, but it used to be done back in the days. So like I said, there's many more, but I think that would require like a much longer episode to expand on those.
So any closing remarks about that beer? Now you've had like a chance to sip on it for a little while.
One thing that I will say is that by far I've had some Goses. This one here is very distinct. Even if you might have,
really?
Yes, because I don't know up in Canada, but here in the US, at least like a few years back, this was a style that came into it got discovered, and a few breweries started producing it. And there's a lot out there, but what the main difference between the ones that I've had from here around, like the ones that I've had a chance to explore, and this one is that really the depth of flavor. One thing that I forgot to mention is that it's also...
That's so interesting, the saltiness.
Yeah, right? Like the saltiness, and the second element is the coriander. That's the other spice that is used traditionally in the brewing of this beer. And these two elements really, I think, impart a very unique and distinct characteristic together with that acidity. This almost triad of elements it's so deep and unique.
Triad.
Yeah, it's just like it's
a
so
beer triad.
I don't know, like that minerality in particular, in my opinion, is just bringing the beer experience to a different level. It's a dimension that normally you're not finding in beer. The only other references I have to this type of flavors that I'm tasting here is with wine. And that's changing completely territory. So I find it extremely interesting. Not to say that this tastes like wine, it's just to say that there are some elements to it that are not normally present in any beer I can think of, other than examples of this styles. And this does it beautifully. It's absolutely a wonderful beer.
Wow. What I would give to try that, just the way you described it. I mean, just especially that minerality, the saltiness that you said. I can picture what that would add to that style of beer, and I actually think I would really like that. So I would love to be able to take a sip of that and taste that. A little bit of public service announcement here. Don't worry, these beers will be drank, even though we're cutting this off. We don't want to go for too long here. We don't want to leave you all hanging for an hour. So let us know down below if you tried any of these beers. Well, obviously, maybe you haven't tried the St. Pierre, but have you tried any of Alessandra's or the Paulaner Weissbier Dunkel? Let us know about your beer exploration journeys. That's the most important part of this. Okay, what are some amazing finds that you've come upon recently that are sitting in your beer cellar that you just can't wait to have and tell people about? Let us know in the comments below.
Yes, please. That's the best part for us, reading about them and sharing the experience. Mm-hmm. And most importantly, no matter what you do, like however you start your beer exploration, do not forget to close your beer brackets.
Never forget. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.